Hi, my name's Mark, one of the pastors here at Trillium. Have you ever heard of something called the generosity path? Probably not, because I just made it up. But imagine if there was a path, a generosity path, and 0 was total self-absorption, narcissistic self-centeredness, and 100 was divine-like goodness and graceful giving to somebody else. Where would you put yourself on that continuum? Now, I realize that's pretty hard to answer because, for one thing, what does generosity look like? What does it feel like? How do we know when we're being generous? Also, sometimes we find ourselves when we act in life having several motivations going on at the same time. We do things out of habit, maybe out of guilt, and we do them because we're really wanting to bless someone, and they all go together. So it's really hard to put ourselves on that generosity path. But which direction do you think your life's going in? Are you becoming more generous or less generous in your inclinations? Are you moving towards generosity or are you moving away from generosity? You know, at some point we have to decide when we're on the path, no matter where we find ourselves, that important question of direction, which way we're going, which way we're not. One of the people that has most influenced my thinking about this is a guy named Abraham Lincoln. Probably heard of him, a former president of the United States. Lincoln was an incredibly generous and self-giving person in life. And he was noted for this and celebrated for this. And it's true, he really was. He had this real amazing ability to bless people around him. For instance, he was selfless and quick to forgive. I mean, he had this innate ability to forgive people. When they disappointed him, he would restore them in his own esteem by forgiving them. And that seems so generous, a way of lifting people up in life. He also knew how to take the blame for other people's mistakes. He often used his office and prestige as president to protect other people from the full consequences of their error. To me, again, seems like a very generous instinct, a way of lifting people up in life. Lincoln was an excellent judge of character. He could often see the ability in people before they could even see themselves. He really invested in people, in their potential, and he celebrated their successes. He was never intimidated or jealous of other people's success in life. In fact, he even invited his rivals for the nomination of the Republican Party in 1860 into his cabinet. And when they succeeded, he was thrilled with this. Now, to me, that's an incredibly generous instinct and a way of lifting up people in life. Lincoln never allowed himself to get distracted, or rarely to get distracted by side issues. Always focused on the main issue at hand. He also had an excellent sense of timing, too. He seemed to be able to have that sixth sense to know when to say something or when not to say it, when to move or not to move, both in his personal relationships and in the national affairs of the country. And Lincoln was extremely patient, and he was a man of incredible self-control. He was an incredibly safe person to be around. Now, he wasn't born this way. He evolved into this person through the hard knocks of life that he went through. And in each situation that he encountered, he made a decision, if you learn about his life, to move towards generosity. I don't know where he started on that generosity path, but I know that when those moments came, he started to move micro step, teeny weeny step towards generosity. So for instance, when he was 7 years old, he had to take a step back in his education in order to raise money for the family. At 9, his mom died. When he was 21, he lost his job at a store in Springfield, Illinois. When he was 23, he opened up a business with a partner and incurred considerable debt. When he was 26, his partner died, leaving with him all the debt for the business. At 27, he had a breakdown. At 29 or so, he ran for the state legislature and lost. Over the next number of years, he ran for Congress time after time and lost. The one time he won, he only had a 2-year term and then he lost again. He ran for the U.S. Senate twice and lost in both instances. And then finally in 1860, he's elected president of the United States at a very moment when the country's falling apart. And I'll tell you one thing, that country today, the United States, is together because of this man and his instinct to generosity with people around him. It's because of his willingness in the disappointments and failures of life to move one step closer to generosity after one step closer that changed everything. So that when he arrived on stage, he was the man in the moment to save the country.